I know that we can.
I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. Oh, why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can.
I know we can make it work.
Attorney Elizabeth Mitchell has tried dozens of civil and criminal cases in both federal and state court. She pioneered a first-of-its-kind lawsuit against the city and county of Los Angeles, demanding beds and services for thousands of homeless men, women, and children. Elizabeth was a Dean's Merit Scholar at Pepperdine School of Law, graduating cum laude and serving as managing editor of the Dispute Resolution Law Journal. She's a smart person. She is a partner in Spertus, Landis, and Umhofer. She is also a SuperLawyer and has been recognized as one of the top 100 lawyers in California by the Daily Journal. And before I bring Elizabeth on, if any law firm watching me, any business person would like to sponsor Yes We Can podcast with Pastor Sherman D.Manning, email me at shermandmanning@gmail.com. That's shermandmanning@gmail.com. Your tax-deductible donation will help feed the hungry, house the homeless, and produce this podcast. Go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org, click Donate Now. We need your help, and we need it right now. Like this video on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, and Apple Music. Before I bring on the SuperLawyer, take a look at this. This is on the streets of Los Angeles. Take a quick look. Check this out. Have you heard about the lawsuit for the homeless?
No, I haven't seen.
So you've been out of the loop a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about that when I give you my number. So you need help, you need housing. And may I ask you your age? Is that okay?
I'm 61.
61-year-old homeless woman right here in Los Angeles, qualified, get social security. I'm going to connect you with some people that I know also. We're going to try to get you out. Okay, I'm going to give you my number. I promise you that. And what would you say? All these politicians who say they're going to take care of people on Skid Row and all of that.
Make it happen.
You think it's a bunch of talk right now? Or what?
Yeah.
Bunch of talk? Too slow.
Too slow. Molasses out your ass.
Get your what?
Molasses out your ass.
Okay. I'm not going to repeat that, but y'all heard it, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we're going to do what we can do. Get your phone out. Let me give you my number. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things I want to say, I was thinking about it as she gets, I'm going to give her my number. We're going to see if we can help her. Rick is running for mayor. Karen is running for mayor. One of them is going to win. Let me say this. Wouldn't it be nice if Rick agreed to work with Karen if he loses, and vice versa? I saw that come up in the debate. Rick kind of shook it off a little bit, but Rick is a billionaire. Let's say Mr. Caruso loses. My challenge to Mr. Caruso would be, why don't you come and help Karen? You really say you're concerned about the community, you're running, you don't need the money, you don't need the salary. Why don't you become the czar of homelessness for Karen Bass if you lose? And Karen, if you lose, why don't you do the same thing for Rick? If we all love LA and it's a city of angels and we're tired of seeing beautiful people like Darlene Johnson sleeping on the streets in the wealthiest nation on planet Earth, why don't we work together and make it happen? You ready for my number? Okay, you gotta turn it on. Is this my phone? I lost my phone a couple weeks ago. This was just like it. Thank you for allowing me into your homes, ladies and gentlemen, and to the plane, the train, wherever you're located. She's back for a second time. She actually needs no introduction, but I had to say that just anyway. Glad to have you back. Attorney Elizabeth Mitchell, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pastor. I'm doing well. How are you?
Fabulous, fabulous. I hear that you have some news for us. LA County, the last time you were here, we were talking about the settlement with the city of Los Angeles and your one-of-a-kind, first-of-its-kind lawsuit for the homeless in Los Angeles. And recently, just last week, I think it was, LA County agreed to pay $236 million to settle the lawsuit over services for the homeless. Now, what do these services include? Please tell.
Sure. So it's actually going to end up being a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
You have the LA County agreeing to do a whole host of things. So the primary thing it's agreed to do, and the thing that we're most excited about, is that it's agreeing to marry up its approach with the city of Los Angeles' approach. So the number one thing that we were focusing on in bringing this lawsuit against the city and the county was really trying to get them to work together. That was one of the hardest things in the city. If you looked at it, was just a scattered approach. If you looked at the way the services were provided, they were not talking to each other, right? You had Department of Mental Health, and you had Department of Public Health, and you had these outreach workers, and you had LASA, and you had the city, and you had everybody just sort of scattered around, and they were not working together.
Right.
So the number one thing that we were trying to do is get them to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember, Pastor, last time we were here, I think we were announcing that the city had settled the lawsuit, agreeing to provide overall 20,000 beds. So they previously had agreed to 6,000 beds. This is now an additional 14,000 beds. And so one of the things that we were most concerned about is that there was no services agreement with the county. Okay. So you have beds, but if you have beds without treatment, you find people kind of dropping out. And so with this agreement, you have the county agreeing to provide operational and mainstream services for every single project that the city stands up in the next few years, which is a really big accomplishment. We're very excited about that.
Yes.
So, and that frankly was the number one thing that the city was worried about too, right? They needed that assistance. You also have direct communication now between the county and the city, and it's unbelievable that it took a lawsuit to do that, but it did. Right. And so now you have the city outreach teams are going to be able to call up Department of Mental Health directly and talk to them directly and be able to connect clients directly with individuals who need that mental health assistance. So that's those things are the things that we're most excited about with this agreement. In addition, you have what they call high service need beds. So people that need more assistance than just a bed, right? You need beds with mental health treatment. They don't go as far as clinical assistance, but they're called high needs beds. You have the county agreeing to connect those folks, high acuity, meaning higher needs, homeless individuals with those high needs beds, which is such a big deal. And you, Pastor, and you and I have been out together on the streets, and we know how great the need is.
Absolutely.
You have commitment to an additional 300 clinical beds, which is just a drop in the bucket, to be honest, about what we need, but it's moving the ball forward. You have an additional teams that are going to go out, mental health teams, multidisciplinary teams that are doubling in the city of Los Angeles. And then you also have sort of partnerships and policy shifts and those kinds of things that we're excited about. And then finally, you have reporting. We're in this for another 5 years at least. And the city and county both have the obligation for the next 5 years, every single 3 months, to be reporting to us and to Judge Carter on a whole host of things, and how the cooperation is going, how the services are going, how everybody's working together. And so we're really excited about it. It's a huge step in the right direction, but by no means is going to solve the problem.
Did Judge Carter agree to the settlement yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So
when is that going to take place?
What's that?
When is that going to be determined?
November 15th.
Okay. And
so
what is your expectation there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting hearing. I will tell you that. So October 17th, we have to file the final agreement. And November 15th, we have the hearing in front of Judge Carter. And I have deep respect for the man. Yes. Someday when this is all over, I hope you have him on your podcast.
We have to.
He is somebody that is, a shaker and a mover. And he really wants significant movement. And I honestly think it's going to depend on the level of commitment that the county demonstrates at that hearing.
Yeah, I hope he agrees to it. And I concur with your assessment that this is not enough, but is better than nothing. As you know, I've interviewed many homeless experts right here on this podcast. Some people would consider me an expert. And I will say this to the critics of the lawsuit. I will admit I'm biased in favor of the lawsuit. I always think that something is better than nothing. And some people say, oh, it's not going to house everybody. Well, I don't want to pontificate too much, but I will say that I've said to pastors and to donors that I remember someone asking me at the height of Yes We Can Worship Center housing, Elizabeth, I can only, as a man, as a person, without a full-time staff, I can only house one person per day, which is 5 people per week. But that is so much better than nothing. And if you don't think it's important, let you be one of those one persons per day that I am able to get housing for. So for all the critics who say this is not enough and you can't solve the problem with a lawsuit, I would say without the lawsuit, the problem was not solved. So with the lawsuit, this is nothing but making it better. So let's say in the grand scheme of things, what if this lawsuit houses 60% of those who are homeless in Los Angeles? Then all of these politicians and pastors who have $1 million buildings, some of them, and some of these people like Rick Caruso, who's running for mayor, why don't we get together and house the other 40%? And one other thing I want to say while I'm on my soapbox, and that is the 2 people running for mayor. One of them is going to win, Rick Caruso, Karen Bass. I wish that the 2 of them would commit that if Karen wins, Rick comes on as her homelessness czar, and he can help oversee some of this. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need a salary. He says that he is running because he loves this city and he wants to make a difference. So why don't he commit? And Karen, who's a congresswoman and a great woman, by the way, if she doesn't win, why doesn't she agree to work with Rick Caruso and help solve this homelessness problem? When Barack Obama ran for president, he and Hillary had a bitter campaign all the way to the end. And I have to give him credit and her credit that after he won, she came and worked with him as Secretary of State. So that's my 2 cents there. Elizabeth, you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say, so, I mean, it's one of the interesting criticisms we've gotten about this agreement is that it's an only 60%. That's what the city has agreed to do, is house 60%.
Right.
But I think there's a misconception of that. What the city has agreed to do is build sufficient beds for 60%. The idea being those beds aren't locked down, right? Because the goal is not to keep people in shelter beds. The goal is to move people on and up. And so those beds are used on average 6 months, and then a person moves on and up or reunites with the family, or, you know, whatever the next step might be for them.
Right.
And so a 60% turnover ideally will keep people moving through the system. The goal is 100%. The goal is a functional zero. Now, a lot more needs to be done, especially in terms of permanent housing. And that is absolutely true. But the goal for this was always the immediate emergency. So I just wanted to step in there and explain that 60%.
That's very important. Thank you for elucidating that for us. So let me ask you this, Elizabeth. You're very passionate about this, and you've done this work now for how many years? Has it been 2 years since you started?
3.
3 years since you started. So in a perfect world, let's say the lawsuit, the efforts of the lawsuit is able to house 80% of the people. What would you suggest, and just in your layman's opinion, what would you suggest we as citizens, we as pastors, politicians, businessmen do about the other 20%? And that's not a trick question. Just if you were able to opine, what would you say we do so that we get everybody off the streets?
You know what we need to do is together, collectively, business people, politicians, average Joe citizens. I think we need to, march to Sacramento, march to Washington, and we need to change laws. Because honestly, if we're able to house 80%, wonderful.
Yes.
But you have you have 2 massive crises. Well, lots of crises together, right? You have a drug crisis, you have a mental health crisis, and those 2 are inevitably intertwined. And you have a massive housing crisis. And you have a whole bunch of other things that are snowballing in there. But one of the, the number one thing that we need to talk about is mental health and mental health treatment and drug rehabilitation treatment. And if you don't have those things handled, which are policy issues, it's going to be very difficult to talk about the remaining 20%, because that's who's going to be left in the cold, unfortunately, until those policy issues change. And those policy issues are correctly not something that we can address with this lawsuit, unfortunately.
Right.
And so those are the issues that we have to talk to Sacramento about, we have to talk to Washington about, and we really need to come together to address.
Mentioning coming together, ladies and gentlemen, she was talking about these crises. I was out just today talking with homeless women about this crisis, and ironically, this particular woman is 61 years old, just got out of prison, and has no place to go. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
So, if the mayor was watching right now, what would you say we need to do? In short.
What I think they should do? Oh, wait.
Talk to me. What should we do?
Well, right now, I just feel that, when you do the math, there's like 60,000 people homeless down here downtown. Now, Downtown Women's Center only handles a third of that, but we only service a third of the homeless population. What we do is we put them on a list for housing. When we put them on that list for housing, it just takes a turnaround time. I mean, you got the governor and the mayor saying they're throwing all this money at homeless people, but to get an actual homeless person housed is quite an endeavor. I've had people on a list for months.
How long have you worked here?
I worked for 3 months here. Okay, I was homeless myself before. I've been through the system. I educated myself and I got a job here.
That's wonderful.
Okay,
That's a real
but
story.
it isn't about me. It's about getting people from the list into a housing shelter.
Yes.
And that process is just taking forever.
Can I ask you this? Have you heard of Rick Caruso?
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay, what about Karen Bass?
Sure I have.
So one of them is going to be the mayor in November. One of them is going to win. What would you say to them? What do we need to do?
Let's get down with LASA. Let's start negotiating with LASA, which is the Los Angeles, that's the homeless services, okay? That's the homeless health authority. And what they need to do is get a faster turnaround time. A lot of these shelters are closed down because of quarantine. I understand that. They gotta, but getting people housed is a long time. So that's about it.
That's about it. Okay, and one other thing. Have you heard anything about the lawsuit for the homeless?
Oh yeah, where they take their stuff away?
No. There's a massive lawsuit filed on behalf of the homeless asking the city and the county to house every homeless person.
I have not heard of that.
Okay, all right.
But I will familiarize.
Check it out.
I will.
And also, I'm Pastor Manning, Sherman Manning.
Okay.
Yes, we can worship Center.
Okay.
Okay, so look me up.
All right, I will.
And
Pastor
give me
Manning.
a call. Yeah.
All right.
Give me a call. Thank you for talking to me. What's your name?
Pat.
Pat. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pat, Mr. Caruso, Mrs. Bass, Mayor Bass. If you all are watching, this is what Pat has to say. And Pat is getting ready to get housing for her right now. I'll try it.
No, because we can't get her housing fast. It's a long time to turn around. You can put them on a list for interim housing. It still takes 2, 3, 4
Well, do me a
months.
favor, and I'm saying this on camera. Make sure she calls me also.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Worship Center. Make sure
All
she
right.
calls me. All right? 213-858-2608. 213.
Hey, give some camera. Hey, here I am, the godfather of everywhere. Let me tell you something. A true tap dancer, shouldn't put the blunt, but the father that knows the Heavenly Father.
What's your
You hear
name?
me? I'm Dr. Brent Winston Miller.
And how do I know you? How do you
Born
know me?
and raised
How do we know
in
each
San
other?
Pedro Children's Hospital.
How do we
I'm
know
a
each
California kid.
How do we know each other?
The Lord.
From here?
The Lord.
Amen. Good. Pastor Manning. Have you been housed?
Yeah, man.
You are now? Good. How long were you homeless?
Half a year.
After you? And they got your house in your downtown women's shelter? How long? 8 years? Wow. It's a long time. It's better than being homeless, ain't it? You're going to take the fifth on that, huh? You ain't going to say that. Well, look, God bless you, and you have a good day. I'm Pastor Manning.
coming out the door is looking for your house.
Okay. Give him my number. 213. Put it in your phone.
What?
Put it in your phone.
Oh. What's going down?
I ain't got no plan. Put it in your phone. In your phone.
Yeah.
Is that an Obama phone or a Trump phone? Amen. There you have it. So, Elizabeth, this March on Washington, and I love the idea. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. marched on Washington in a Poor People's Campaign, and I think that those issues were never adequately addressed. But and I'm going to send this podcast. I'm going to make sure that Mr. Caruso gets it. I will make sure that Miss Bass gets it. So, if we were to march on Washington, tell me what are some of the you said changing laws, and that's your area of expertise. Talk to me about the laws that need to be changed to address this housing crisis.
So if we talk about, well, one of the one that I honestly want to talk about is the mental health crisis. Mm-hmm. You talk about if we're going to go to Washington, the number one thing from a federal stance that we can do is there's something called an IMD exclusion. So it's called the Institute for Mental Disease. And this is law going back 60 years, 80 years, where the federal Medicare dollars can't be used to provide for an individual living in a mental institution that has more than 16 units. And so 16 is the max beds that can be in any of these what's called IMD institutions. And
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, they did that originally because there was this huge push to deinstitutionalize, right? There was that one flew over a cuckoo's nest idea of, I'm talking about the movie?
Right, of course.
No, it was people with schizophrenia and significant serious mental illness were treated horribly in this country in the early 1900s. And so the idea was let's deinstitutionalize and really encourage community-based care. The problem is, one, that community-based care never materialized, right? States and counties use those funds for other things. But two, you have now this IMD exclusion where, we cannot have these larger, more cost-efficient mental institutions like the state mental institutions that Medicare will pay for. And that is antiquated and it needs to change, right? It's one of those, you have the pendulum that was so far this way and now it's swung way too far on the other side and it needs to come to the middle. So if we're talking about the number one federal law that needs to change, it's the IMD exclusion.
IMD, okay. You're educating me. We'll be right back after this. Take a look. Hi, everybody. My brand new podcast is one of the most talked about podcasts that are out there right now. We interview super lawyers like attorney Frank Gooch, attorney Matthew Close, and many, many others. Richard Hirsch. If you're interested in criminal justice, homelessness, and current events that face your community on a daily basis, you need to watch Yes We Can with Pastor Sherman D.Manning. I have an upcoming interview that is absolutely fascinating. It involves a gentleman that we'll call Tommy. The work that he's done is so dangerous that we don't even show his face in the interview. We call him Tommy. He has participated in rescues of children in other countries who have been sexually exploited by sadistic, demonic men, women. We need you to tune in to Yes We Can with Pastor Sherman D. Manning, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, iHeart. We're there. Tell your friends about it. Finally, if you'd like to sponsor our podcast, go to YesWeCanWorshipCenter.org, click donate now. Yes, we can. Okay, so let's talk locally. Elizabeth, if we were to go to Sacramento, let's say February of 2023, what do you think we should be demanding? What should we be requesting? Who should we be seeing? The governor, the state legislature, what?
So I love this question because my team is we've been exploring going to Sacramento in 2024.
Wow.
There's you have the opportunity for a statewide ballot initiative in 2024. And how can we do what we've done in Los Angeles, but actually address the policies statewide? So one of the things or the main focus that the Alliance has had three things, right? In order to address this crisis, you need shelter and housing, you need services and treatment, and you need safe streets. And how do we do all of that together?
Okay.
So I think one of the main issues that the state can do is address, again, the mental health laws. But you have significant, I apologize, I'm just getting over a cold that my little gremlins brought home from school. But you have shelter and housing that can be encouraged. You can open that, especially if the affordable housing market, wide open. On the services and treatment part, you really need to reform altogether the way we view mental health treatment. And there needs to be accessible mental health treatment and accessible drug rehabilitation treatment. So my good friend Tom Wolf, who's a recovery, he's actually was homeless and drug addicted in the Tenderloin in San Francisco.
Excuse me, what is his last name again?
Wolf.
Okay.
WOLF. It might be two F's.
Okay.
But I can connect you if you're interested.
Please do.
He's amazing. So he was a heroin addict in the Tenderloin. He's now an advocate for recovery. And what he says is, right now we have drugs easy to get and treatment impossible to get. We need treatment to be easy to get and drugs difficult to get.
Absolutely.
So we need to turn that around.
Yes.
And I think that's a brilliant model, and that's something we need to take to Sacramento, in addition to the ability to access mental health care for everybody that needs it, in particular those with serious mental illness on the street or in at risk of becoming homeless because of their serious mental illness.
Now, unpack that a little bit more for me. So you have a coalition, you have a group right now working on possibly going to Sacramento in 2024. Are these lawyers, law students? Explain that to me.
So we're in our baby stages right now. It's an infancy stage. I don't know that we're ready to announce it, and they might get mad at me for even talking about it at the moment. But it's you, Pastor.
Right. You can be a little nebulous, but just educate us a little bit. Give us a snoop.
That's okay.
The scoop,
but
rather.
I'll give you a scoop. So yes, that's what we're looking at, because if what we're doing in Los Angeles, we have proof of concept here, and you see that it has worked. We've seen that it can work in other places. And I have a whole bunch of other people that can support those efforts and can really come forward as spokespeople to say, yes, this works. And we need all three of those things to work together, right? We need shelter and housing, we need services and treatment, and we need clean and safe streets. And all three of them can work together and must work together in order to turn things around. And so, to take that concept and be able to take it statewide, we think is crucial. And you can do that in a way that is compassionate, and a way that is forceful, that requires cities and counties and the state to act and to really help people that need help instead of leaving them on the streets. And so we're very excited about it. And when I have more to announce, I'm happy to come back on here and give you the details.
Wonderful, wonderful. One of the things I've been talking about, we have been talking about, is a homelessness summit, because I know all of these experts. I've had Dr. Mungeon on. I've had your good friend Paul Webster. I've had, I think I had Paul on twice. I've had Brian on. All of these brilliant minds, and I think that we should all get together even before 2024, and let's start planning to do something for, I would just call it the other 20%. And as we know, that number is fluid. We don't know what the number is going to be. But I think that this lawsuit, again, is great. And I commend you. I commend your firm for taking it on. I mean, we're always going to have people in the peanut gallery who have some criticism. And my question normally to them is, what have you done for me lately? How many people have you housed? And what have you done? And normally the answer is none. They just sit on the sidelines and have something to say. That's okay. But those who are really interested in doing something to change California and to change Los Angeles, I think we all need to get together and let's do something, because Los Angeles, the city of angels, Elizabeth, looks like a third world country. And I think one of the problems is a lot of us have normalized people sleeping in tents on the street. And I just want to say to everyone watching me, everyone listening around the country, around the world, all of you great politicians, this is not normal. In the wealthiest nation on planet Earth, this is not normal. If we can send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, and I support doing that, you can't tell me that we don't have enough money right here to solve this problem. And Elizabeth is correct. This is a mental health problem. This is a drug addiction problem. This is a conglomeration of problems, and it's very complex. But this is the greatest country on earth. And even though we have our political differences and disasters going on in Washington right now, I still believe in bring me your tired and hollow masses. And I think that we can make a difference in this country. Elizabeth, one more question. And it's a question that has befuddled and bemused me, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it. And that is, how do you think these politicians, Garcetti, and he's on his way out, and God forgive me, but I must say that, he may be a great child of God and he may mean well, but in my opinion, he's one of the most duplicitous people I've ever met in my lifetime, who can really talk a good game, but when it came time to putting up, didn't do very much. And he's not the only problem. There are many. But my question, Elizabeth, is how do you think all of these public servants, these politicians, are able to walk into City Hall every day, past these encampments, and allow that to be for so long? How do you think they do that?
Honestly, I agree with you. I think there are many people who don't care. There are many people that care, but maybe feel untouched by it personally,
Yes.
or there are other things that they want to focus on.
Yes.
But I think much more than that, there are people who just don't know what to do. How do we move forward?
I agree. Yes.
And I'm sorry, I think that they're paralyzed, that there's that paralysis by analysis.
Mm-hmm.
People talk their way into a hole.
Right.
And that's what's happened here,
right?
People have talked themselves into a hole, and it's become a disaster. And I think one of the things that Judge Carter always talks about is the Marine strategy of you fail forward. And you fail forward, meaning you always act. You don't, even if what you do is 80% correct
Mm-hmm.
and 20% wrong, at least it's 80% correct. And then you go back and you figure it again.
That's
But you always fail forward. And I think that that's a really crucial thing to do. We have to act.
Yes.
And I think what's happened in politics today is everybody just wants to talk about it and nobody wants to act. And we're here to say, you got to move.
That's right. And that's why I like the lawsuit. I agree. I've often said that there's a paralysis that comes from too much analysis, Elizabeth, and I don't have a lot of pastors on my program, believe it or not, and I'm a pastor. And that is because in my field, Elizabeth, we do a lot of talking. And to me, there's been enough talk. We need to do something. That's why even when we have the homelessness summit, one of my demands is going to be that when the summit is over, we will have a plan of action, something. Reverend Hosea Williams, one of my mentors, used to say, even if I'm wrong, I think I'm right, but I'm going to do something. I think I'm right. I think I'm right. So I like that from Judge Carter. Fail forward. Fail forward. We've got 6 minutes left, Elizabeth. Anything else you want to cover before we go? Any more news? Are you excited about November 15th? What is your prayer that what will happen there?
I'm nervous about November, honestly. I think it could go a lot of different ways. I think we have a lot of momentum, and I think people are finally coming together and moving forward around a plan. I mean, it's the LA Alliance plan, right? We have what Kevin De Leon often calls a North Star, right? We're moving forward. We have a path. And that's part of what the goal always has been with the alliance and with this lawsuit has been, it doesn't matter who's in office. We have to move forward on a certain path. And, because it's already baked in. We have a settlement agreement for the next 5 years. And so I appreciate that. I'm glad, but I think implementation thereof could be more or less difficult depending on who comes in. And so I'm very interested to see what happens in November, but regardless of what happens in November, we know that the city and the county are going to have to move forward. And that's the beauty of it. So we'll see.
Okay. What about Matt? What is Matt doing lately? Tell everybody who Matt is.
He's in the air right now.
Okay,
unfortunately, He is on his way back from San Francisco to Los Angeles. He was very sad that he had to miss it, and he wanted me to send you his deepest regrets and apologies. He would love to be on another time or to see you separately.
Great. We will get him on. You can help us coordinate that if you can. I want to get this Tom Wolf person on whenever I can. Connect me with that person. And thank you so much for coming on. Before I go, anything, last words you'd like to say? Let's do it this way. To the critics of the lawsuit, what do you say?
I would say we're failing forward. I am thrilled. I think we have 20,000 beds paired with services and requirements to act by deadlines and milestones.
Yes.
And doing so holds the city and county accountable.
Yes.
And whatever doesn't work, we can always come back and fill in the holes.
Thank you.
So I am thrilled. I am excited, and we have to move forward because there's no other plan.
I salute you. I commend you for your great work. I know you to be a great person, to be a passionate person. I appreciate what you're doing. I hope that every lawyer, that every doctor, that every business person, every pastor watching the podcast will be compelled to action. Elizabeth touched on something, a nerve there when she said a lot of people really do care, but they don't know what to do. If you don't know what to do and you would like to do something, I would like for you to email me at shermandmanning@gmail.com. My email address should be on the screen. shermandmanning@gmail.com should be on the screen right now. Those of you watching, if you'd like to help promote and produce and support this podcast, go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. I want to remind everybody watching that you can make a difference in your community. We can solve this crisis of homelessness with firms like Elizabeth and people like you who are watching. We can do it together. Yes, we can.
I know we can make it.
I know that we can.
I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. Oh, why can't we? If we want it, yes, we can.
I know